Super Random Dragon.
As a diehard Yakuza, or Ryuga Gotoku, or Like a Dragon game fan, I was excited yet skeptical for the live-action series on Prime to be released this October. Though there have been attempts at live-action adaptations in the past, they were earlier in the series' existence and popularity. Surely one would think they would be aiming for a home run this time around, but as I feared, that didn't happen. Unlike some fans though, I was willing to give it a chance even after the first 3 episodes. However, now that the final episodes have aired, I can give my official final opinion. For those who don't care or don't want spoilers, the simple answer is that, in my opinion, the show is pointless for fans and newcomers alike. They butchered the story for fans and made a confusing and somewhat boring show for newcomers. Now, I'll get into explaining why, what I did like, and like many others, what I totally despised. So be prepared for some heavy spoilers for the show and the games. As for newcomers, the main problem with the show is the confusing time skips. It's constantly jumping around, mostly between 1995 and 2005, but with some other years scattered in between. It makes it hard to follow, and it would have been better if it were 3 episodes in 1995 and 3 in 2005, in my opinion. Also, as far as action and story, it's just average at best. I can't see anyone being inspired to play the games by watching this series. So, how is it for the fans like me? Well, even worse. Again, let me say I was willing to give the series a chance even after the first 3 episodes because I figured they had time to change most of the problems. However, they didn't. They just further solidified everything that was different, wrong, or bad. First of all, I know one of the biggest complaints from most fans is the lack of humor in the series. I didn't mind that though, since many people forget that aside from the last couple games with Kasuga Ichiban, the main story has never really had any humor. The side stories and mini-games etc. had humor, but the main story was always serious. I still think it would have been nice to throw in some humor or mini-games like batting cages or karaoke, but it wasn't a deal breaker for me. To me, the biggest problem is that they completely changed the storyline, including key components that made the series. Haruka, one of the most important characters in the whole franchise, is probably the most minor character of this show. Not only that, but she's not even the daughter of the same person as the games, meaning Kiryu's connection to her isn't as meaningful. Even the way Kiryu meets her in the series makes no sense. He just shows up to a place for no reason and finds her in a bathroom stall for no reason. Or maybe there was a reason, but I forget and the time skips confuse me, or I don't know. Anyway, instead of the mature beyond her age independent personality of Haruka too, like in the game version, this one is a stuck-up, spoiled, annoying brat like her new mother. Her only independence comes from her assuming she can do whatever she wants whenever she wants. In fact, her mom even says as much, as that's how she raised her. The original love triangle, or hint of love triangle, between Nishiki, Kiryu, and Yumi is virtually non-existent, except for an awkward forced moment or two that none of the characters seem to be happy about. The florist of Sai is almost a comedic character instead of a respected underground informant. Shimano is no longer a bald hulking threat of a character. Yumi isn't connected to anyone in politics, etc., etc. The show wipes out all of Yakuza 0's storyline too. Instead of Nishiki and Kiryu already being Yakuza members at the end of the 80s, along with the planning and land grabbing of the land plot for the Millennium Tower, it's all happening in 1995. This is a big gripe I have with the series. Aside from the stupid redesign of the Millennium Tower, the main characters go from orphans to Yakuza in less than a year in 1995, and Kiryu seemingly ends up in prison, which makes me wonder how he became a legendary fighter in such a short time. Sure, he had a good tournament, but that's it. Speaking of Kiryu becoming a legendary fighter, I'm going to address the most atrocious plot point, perhaps, that affects all that is Kiryu and the Yakuza or Like a Dragon franchise. In this show, Kiryu is not the original Dragon of Dojima. In this series, there was a man Kiryu saw in an underground fighting tournament as a child that inspired him to want to be the Dragon of Dojima. Spoiler alert, it ends up being his adopted father, an assassin of his parents, Kazama. So, Kiryu not only copies another man's tattoo, but strives to continue his legend. Not only that, but he throws aside his friends and everything for his dream to be the new dragon. All this is totally opposite of Kiryu's actual personality in the game series. In the games, Kazuma Kiryu becomes the Dragon of Dojima, the 4th Tojo chairman, etc. in spite of not wanting any of the attention or accolades. He merely wants to protect his loved ones and be the best man and fighter he can be for the sake of those around him. So using his loved ones to accomplish some dream of being a legendary fighter is just not being like a dragon. Perhaps one of the changes I can accept is how Majima Goro loses his eye. In the games, he loses his eye by a no-name grunt for simply not giving in to interrogation. In the show, it's more meaningful for the overall scheme. He pulls a gun out in broad daylight and risks people's lives, which leads to the loss of funding for the Millennium Tower, which is, of course, his boss's big dream, so the Dojima boss cuts out his eye as retribution. That makes a lot more sense. Speaking of the Millennium Tower, though, the design in the show is really stupid. As far as the rest of Majima's story, including his meeting of Kiryu, is less than ideal as well. Plus, Saejima is a mere punk who follows Majima so far, half the size of what he should be and smiling like an idiot. I mean, Saejima has never smiled ever to my knowledge, and Saejima is the closest physical match to Kiryu in both strength and fighting ability. That, of course, isn't represented at all in this series. The final straw for me, though, was when the new villain was introduced in the form of demons or men wearing demon masks, and not only was it unnecessary and uninteresting, but, stupid spoiler alert, the main demon ended up being Nishikiyama himself. That's right. Even though he got his ass handed to him earlier in the series, and he never trained in fighting, he somehow becomes a badass assassin without us knowing. As if his character from House of Ninjas got mixed in accidentally. If you don't know of that series, I highly recommend it, and you can watch my review of it, as it's by far a better show than this. Anyway, all this is not to mention Kiryu and Nishiki never got a classic Yakuza pre-fight shirt toss moment. That's ways too, as Ken Tokaku is one of the few Japanese actors with a physique of a Yakuza game character. Alright, well, I can go on and on about my problems with the show. My one compliment is with the acting. The actors really did their best with the crap script they were given. The fight scenes were decent too, and gave a fair homage to the game's moves, etc. Both Majima and Kiryu were pretty dang good. Not the best, but good. It isn't the worst series out there. Still, I'd give it just a 5 or 6 out of 10 as a show, and as a tribute to the game series, just a 2 or 3. Watch it if you're curious, but I'd say we need to hold Sega or whoever accountable. The sad thing is, they clearly made it seem like they're setting up a second season. They haven't verified anybody has officially died. Kiryu just discovers Kazuma is the original Dragon of Dojima and his parents' assassin, and so on. Personally, I just wish they'd chalk it up as a loss and give up, or somehow still find a way to remedy some mistakes with the series, but I highly doubt that could happen. They've dug too deep. In the meantime, I'll just stick with replaying all the games over and over again like I usually do, all while awaiting future game releases. For my reviews on those, random Japanese news, culture, TV, and all that stuff, and all stuff Japan, please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Thanks as always for watching. Later.